You will need newspaper to put on your surfaces. I'm very lucky, I've got a stone bench here, so I'm not too fussed about a bit of coffee on there. But it can stain, so make sure you always have something underneath to protect your table or your mum and dad's workbenches. It's a good idea also to try and find yourself a little jar for storing it in when you've finished, and that just means that you can keep reusing it. You'll need to find yourself some recycled bits of paper. Old envelopes are fantastic because they have a really quite a good quality paper that you can just cut up. You can cut them open to make them into flat workable pieces. Okay. And you can choose to leave the little torn edge on if you want to, or you trim it off. But anything that you have. All right, this is all about being inventive and recycling as much as we can. If you have a brush, a paintbrush, then great, you can use that. But I would also like you to be a little bit adventurous and go hunting outside or in your garden for some other things that may work. So I've got a little twig. And I collected a piece of grass. This is actually from my orchid outside. It's quite fibrous-y, it's quite strong. You can pull the pieces apart. And I thought, oh, maybe I can try making this into a brush. Okay, so to make it into a brush, and this is my little brush that I've made here, you see. Okay, so my little bristles at the end. And I've got a little just sticky tape around the middle here for me to hold and use it. Okay, so to do that, to make that, I just got my piece of grass or my orchid leaf, and I sort of split it up a little bit with my fingers, just pulling them apart. Then I got a piece of sticky tape, and I just, not too far from the end because you don't want it to be too flimsy, bound them all together nice and tightly at the top there. And then I just checked to see if there were any bits that were still a bit too tight. And if they were, I can cut them with my scissors or trim them off. Okay, let's have a look, see what that does. That's a nice big thick line. If I go onto the tip, a thinner line. Try splitting them out and making them wide into the fan. Oh, I get multiple lines. Okay, so that's making my own brush. With the twig, we can experiment, see what sort of lines we can make. So on the side, dragging, on the tip, drawing. Can do dots, dashes. Okay, I can make all sorts of patterns. Obviously with these sort of tools you have to dip into the ink more often than you do with a brush, because the brush has the capacity to hold more of the water. But that's all part of the fun of exploring new materials and different ways of making marks. Okay. In my journal, this is my upcycling art journal, I have already put some of the ink, coffee ink explorations that I have done. This was just done on a recycled piece of paper, and I used these ones. I was using the brush. So I was just experimenting with it being on its side, being dragged, being up on its tip, being used, being on the side with a whole brush to see what kind of marks I could make. On this side, I have taken the little samples that I did on the pieces of envelope, and I have cut them out and stuck them into my journal. This one down here is done using my orchid leaf brush, my handmade brush. These ones down here were done with the stick, so these ones with the dots, made a little pattern, a spiral using the dots. These ones here, I did a pattern of dashes using the stick. And this one up here was using the stick for drawing. Over here, I have a leaf. I painted the underside of the leaf to try and see if I could get the veins, and then I pressed it down. And on all of these I have actually written, say what I've done, okay, so I can remember. And on this side I just had a little exploration, a bit of a doodle really. When I did this first, my first layer was quite blurry, and as I worked I was using a little bit of clean water as well. So you can see, to make it lighter, if you add water to your brush, it will become lighter and more thinner. And where it is darker, it is where it's more the pure coffee ink. Okay. Then when I let it dry, I came back to it, and if I come up nice and close, you can see some of these lines. There's lines on top of the blurry part of the ink. Okay, so that was done by drawing over the top of my dried picture, so I could add extra details and more definition. Okay, this activity is for you to have an explore of different types of marks using different types of materials that you can find around your house or in your garden, and just see what you can make.